The KRGS Doors Show, proudly brought to you by KRGS Doors. For all your shopfront roller shutters, roller grills, folding closures and bifold doors, visit www.krgsdoors.com.au. Welcome to the KRGS Doors Podcast. I'm your host, Drew Blackman. The aim of our podcast is to talk to cool people with cool stories, whether it be our suppliers, customers, staff, other business owners, or people from different walks of life, and get to know them a bit better. If you're interested in coming on, drop us a line or email, or connect with us via Facebook, and we can have a chat to see what we can do. Today on episode 55 of the 4-year-old KRGS Doors podcast, I'm joined by KRGS Doors Managing Director Clayton Blackman, and we talk to Michael Rowe from Pytha Partners. With over 30 years in the joinery industry, Michael Rowe knows a thing or two about the game. He first discovered Pytha as a shop-fitting apprentice and soon learned to love the capabilities and potential of this user-friendly program. We also chat about his love of lawn bowls. I'll let you in on our next episode's guest, but for now, please welcome to the podcast, Mr. Michael Rowe.
If this doesn't turn you on, folks, you haven't got a switch.
Michael, thank you very much for joining us on the KRGS Doors podcast. What is the Michael Rowe story?
So married with one daughter. I grew up in 500 metres from here, so the tower is very familiar to me. Every time we used to see the tower, we knew we were close to home. So yeah, grew up in Lurnier, went to Lurnier High School, and when I was 18, we moved to Campbelltown, and then I got an apprenticeship as a shop fitter. So I'm a shop fitter and detail joiner by trade. And
who was that with, mate? What company?
So I worked out with McPherson and Davies. I started my time with.
There's a name I haven't heard for a long, long time.
Yeah, so they were pioneers in the industry, really.
They were.
And then they were taken over by Ian Trainer and Brian Wyborn. And yeah, it was a really good apprenticeship, actually. I wanted to be probably an industrial arts teacher.
Yep.
And my parents said, I did year 12. My parents said, look, go and get a job. You don't know if you're going to get into uni or not. So go and have a look around. And I thought shop fitters were shoplifters. I didn't know.
Still.
I thought, when you went into like a Coles or a Woolworths and you just saw racking, and I thought, well, there's not much
to it, mate.
In that trade. So I went for apprenticeships with, Parker Furniture and,
oh yeah.
So a lot of big, the old traditional woodworkers, and they don't exist anymore. These guys, that industry sort of moved overseas.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
they were a great brand, Parker Furniture.
Yeah, so the Chiswell, Parker.
Yep.
I'd had an apprenticeship. I did interviews with them. I remember sitting in the room. One of the Parker Furniture, we had like 100 kids sitting in a room doing a test, just to go through the first part of the interview.
To join Parker Furniture to become a manufacturer.
Yeah, so I went through that process. I think I got a second or third interview with them. And then there was this company, McPherson Davies, and I didn't know what they did, and my mum said, well, why don't you just go and have a look at it? Why don't you just have a look? So
they were based at Smithfield?
They were at Smithfield, yeah. So they were on the corner. Jack's Tyres are still there across the road. So,
yeah.
So I went and had a look, and I didn't realise actually what a shop fitter did, and I had a look at what they were doing, and they had a French polisher in there. They were a metalwork shop.
Old school,
traditional, just making, and at that time they were making all the high-end jewellery stores, banks and stuff like that, United Permanents and all those types of stores. So, yeah, so I took the job on there. I don't know if I got the marks to get into uni, but I think I did, but it didn't matter at that stage. I
didn't go back to being an industrial arts teacher after that, mate.
Yeah, like I was playing golf at the time, and I had an opportunity maybe to become apprentice pro golfer, but I don't think at that stage my golf game was anywhere near good enough. And I saw the pros out at Anneal Park, Picton, just struggling to make a living. So I thought, well, probably not a good career choice for me.
No, I don't want to step back from here.
So yeah, I think the shop fitting was a good choice. So once I did shop fitting, I did my apprenticeship there. I think in my third year I started doing a lot of the set outs for the company. And then when I became a tradesman, I was finishing my clerk of works. And I just wanted a break just to sort of put some time into finishing that. There was a few bit assignments, and so I had a friend who was in my TAFE course who was doing house fit outs. So he'd walk in. He was one of the first guys that had all these battery operated gears. So literally walk in, everything was battery operated, drop saws and everything. And people just look at him weird. He didn't have the generator start up. He'd just walk in.
No leads.
No leads, no whatever. So we'd go in and we'd fit out, a house in 4 or 5 hours, go home and do some study. So I did that for about 6 months. And then I joined Prestige Trojan, who were a contracting agency. So McPherson's used them a fair bit. And, the problem with that job for me was I wanted to be a contractor. The money was good. But every time you walked into a business, all they were doing was hiring contractors to see if they were actually a good fit for their business.
Yeah, they'd try and
poach you.
Yeah, try and poach you to stay there as a permanent.
Yeah, so I did that. I actually did it a lot longer than I probably thought I did, because I happened to work for a few companies. We're doing some
shop fitters, obviously, mate.
A bit of shop fitting. The first job I actually did was I went in and refitted the Prestige Trojan offices.
Okay.
The problem being a shop fitter at McPherson's is you had a skill set where you could do everything. So they had a lot of this old joinery they wanted to repurpose, and then they realised I could actually French polish. So they wanted me then to strip it all down and polish it.
Start fresh.
So I basically tore their offices apart, stripped all their furniture, repainted it, and put it all back in. So I did that for probably about 6 or 8 weeks, and then I started going to different, shop fitting companies. I did a bit of time. I think I went to Dixon and Swanson for a few weeks, and then I actually went into a place that was doing the Sydney Casino at the time.
All right.
So doing night shift, and we're making all these stainless steel columns.
What was that, about late 80s?
No, it was early 90s, probably around about 95.
Okay.
94, 95. And then we actually went to a company that were doing set building for movies.
Okay.
So I contracted in there for a little bit as well. So, and then I ended up at Classic Resources. So
over at Silverwater.
At Silverwater, yeah. So worked for Keith there with Prestige Trojan.
Keith Roffey.
For probably about 3.5 years before Keith came in and said, "Are you still a contractor?" I said, "Yep." He goes, "Well, not anymore. Sign this or leave." So, so when I was at Classic Resources, they realised that I could do some drawing. So rather than actually going on the floor, Keith came and said to me, "We want you in the office." I said, "Oh, I'm not interested." And he didn't really give me a choice. He said, "There's your desk.
Sit there, draw this."
Yeah, which was interesting. And that was obviously my introduction to Pytha, because he was the third company in Australia to actually get the software.
Okay.
So I was introduced to this. I was using software MicroStation at the time. They had some CNC machines that were trying to automate. And then we started to do, go away from that, traditional drawing on a bit of paper or a bit of board, and we started drawing in the office, and then, we looked at Pytha, and, I knew nothing about CAD software, but thought, this seems easy enough. And
to use.
The computers, I remember the computer, it was old Pentium 286, and
you had to pedal it underneath the desk. You had to pedal it, mate?
Install it with a floppy disk, and, you used to draw something and you hit, there was an icon on the desktop that says solid, and then you'd hit that and you go, I shouldn't have done that. Because the computer would then take half an hour to catch up to that, and you'd walk around the factory and go, okay, do this and do that. And so, and then you'd print something out on the old Dottore matrix printer, and it would take an hour to print. And so it was interesting times in technology.
Technology has come a long way, mate.
Yeah, it's crazy. And you think back, in that late 80s, early 90s, for cabinet makers to actually get computers in their businesses, it was
big thing.
It was a big thing, and the technology really wasn't there. But
probably a lot of those old guys too, mate, in that scenario, they were used to pen and paper or pen and board, and rubbing it out and so forth, where a few of those guys, when the technology come along, probably got lost.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So basically from there, when I was using the software as a customer, I decided to make the move, and I think it was late 2000, might have been 2001, to work directly for the software company, Pytha. And I spent 6.5 years with them before I moved on and had my own business. So I left that company to then start my own business, and we were doing some drafting services and selling some estimating software.
And that company was called 4Views?
4Views, yeah. So 4Views was going until the good old GFC hit. So that was from 2007 to 2009. And then the GFC hit and people, wanting set-out services, and just the industry's really, really slowed down and stuff.
Yeah.
So I had one of my customers who had our estimating software said, why don't you come and consult to us a bit in that business? And I stayed a little bit in that business, and then we ended up buying into that business. So we become, it was Fitzpatrick Joinery at the time, and then we become Intermic. So we did that, and I was in that from 2010, I think, to about 2014.
Fitzpatrick's were over at Marrickville?
Marrickville, yes. Yeah, so we used to do a lot of fitness first type fit-outs, and we got into the...
And 4Views office originally was at Tarrant Point Road?
It was on Tarrant Point Road, yeah. So Total Tools is in there now. I drove past that the other day, so next to the old Harvey Norman complex.
Near Gawley Park there?
Yeah. So we did that, and then there came an opportunity come up with Pytha. The Germans rang me and said, we don't have any representation in Pytha in Australia right now. Would you be interested? So I basically took that chance and told my business partner that's something that I wanted to do, and it was something I wanted to do while I was at Pytha, and that opportunity sort of didn't come about. So, yeah.
So with Fitzpatrick's, and what was the other company you said?
Intermic.
Intermic. So that was obviously designing or drawing joinery.
That was shop fitting. We were
shop fitting. So designing from right through, so doing the designs with the CAD system, and then also the manufacturing on the joinery side of things.
That's right. Yeah. So I got into that I think late 2014. I left Intermic and we become Pytha Partners. So we've been selling Pytha in Australia for 10 years.
So from that small, or that 6.5 years working for Pytha, the opportunity didn't arise then, but you went away and then it had another opportunity that you're able to buy or become Pytha Partners.
Yeah, look, I was interested in buying into the business when I was there the first time. Just certain circumstances changed within his business, with his family getting involved and stuff like that. So the opportunity sort of, didn't disappear, but it sort of changed. I sort of, because the old previous owner of Pytha, he owned a company called Solspec, and he sold Solspec to the guys who now are known as Planet, and he sort of semi-retired. But then he found this Pytha product for the shop fitting market. Jim Odlin basically went to, I think it was an exhibition in Singapore, and said to Theo, I found this software, it'd be good for shop fitters. It's a bit different to obviously the cabinet making software. So he basically went and met with the Germans and said, you should come to Australia. And the Germans said, we've been to Australia. There's no market there.
Really?
Because they come out in the late 80s, and there was a Swiss guy that was living in pretty much the middle of Perth, in remote desert.
That's why there was no.
So they flew to Perth. They got in a car for 6 hours through red dust, and met with this Swiss guy. And he said, "Yeah, I like your product. I want to sell it." And he said, "To who?"
Yeah,
what market?
And then when Theo met with them, he said, "No, you need to come to Sydney. You'll see that it's not like that. Australia's not like that." So he basically brought the product in, and Better Built were the first customers in Australia to buy Pytha.
Who's a joinery company?
Joinery company just around the corner, actually. They're in Chipping Norton. Not the Chipping Norton. They're in Moorebanks.
Yep.
Yeah. So that opportunity sort of didn't eventuate. So when the other opportunity come up, we sort of jumped at it.
So if it wasn't for forcing you, that boss forcing you to go into the office, none of this may have happened.
Yes.
If Keith didn't put you in the office and say, draw this up.
Exactly right. Yes. Yeah. Things happen for reasons, and I as much as I didn't want to be in the office at the time, it was probably my skill set. I had a good skill set in drafting and
set out,
and interpreting plans and all that sort of stuff. So Yeah, so my sort of passion in the industry is in that set out space, and the software is obviously just a tool to be able to do that. So
Do you miss that side of things now, mate?
I still get my hands dirty a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, same with joinery. Like I still miss making stuff.
Yeah.
You know, when you're a cabinet maker or a shop fitter, you like getting your hands dirty. So I still try and dabble a little bit, whether it be stuff for home or whatever. But you know, one of the things I loved to do when I had my joinery business was just run the CNC machine.
Yeah.
You know, time would fly. You know, you had nothing. Put headphones in and just run the machines and
pump in the design and away you go.
Yeah, it was like, you know, it was a good outlet and good release. You know, so. But yeah, now you know, it's sort of kind of good opportunity, and I'm glad that happened. Right, so.
Were you always interested, and I know it's probably a time thing, but were you always interested in the software or the technology, or it was more the drawing and set out side of things?
Yeah, it's probably more the drawing side of things. So the technology, like I've had a little bit of interest. I wouldn't say like I'm not a programmer. You know, I can do a little bit of programming. I know when I first started, we sort of had a need to learn a bit more about programming. So we went and did a VB scripting programming course at TAFE of a night time, just to sort of learn a little bit about that. But that's not really my passion is really problem solving. You know, so whether it be set out, whether it be whatever, is that I like to look at challenges and I like to try and problem solve them. So probably that's one of my strengths. So even in looking at the code or the software or what it's doing, or you know where it should go in the market, it's looking at that challenge and saying, hey, well, what can I do to fix that? So when you're drawing something, it's like, okay, well, what's the best way to make this? You know, how do I make it with less materials? You know, easier to construct. It's going to take a lot less time to make. All those sort of challenges. So that's sort of where my passion sort of is, in those problem solving.
Excellent. Now, you've mentioned Pytha Partners.
Yep.
So you've mentioned a little bit about the background with the Germans and that type of thing. So tell us about you take over, how's that all work, and what's Pytha Partners now?
Yeah. So when we took over, there was obviously a fairly large customer base already in Australia. So obviously our job there was to try and expand that. It was hard. It was hard because we were going into it and there was a bit of, I wouldn't say competition, but the previous owner of the business was selling something else. So he was out there trying to promote another product to that existing customer base and cause confusion and all those sort of things in that customer base. He really went and targeted the areas that were remote so he could get first dibs at those, because he knew we weren't going to go and jump on a plane to New Zealand and to Perth and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So he was and he was always he was already a year ahead, because he was selling this other product a year prior to us taking over the business. So
had the jump on you.
Yeah, so he had the jump on us. So we really focused on new business. And we obviously were still trying to look after our existing customer base, but I think to get away from the distraction of that was we found a clear path was, well, the new people don't know who we are and where we've been and what we used to do, so we'll focus on that new business. And then from that, you know, we provided services to the existing customers, and then customers started coming back and accepting that we were the new owners and we could do it. And most of them had known us. I was there for 6.5 years. I was part of that growth through that 6.5 years process. So that wasn't they didn't know us. It was just more getting the clarity of, okay, someone's here, they're going to represent us. So we grew the business. You know, we weren't looking at, you know, just being, I could work from home, I could sell, you know, a few systems a year and be comfortable. But, you know, I think we really wanted to provide good support to our existing customer base and grow the business. So we've grown the business to, I think at our peak, at our most, we've had about 12 staff. We currently sit around between 8 and 9 staff at the moment.
That's Australia-wide?
Australia-wide, yeah. So we want to provide a local support service to the product. You know, obviously we don't develop the product, but we have input into the development. So we basically discuss with the Germans how the software should look, how we use it in our marketplace.
Yeah, what's suited for our clientele.
Yeah, that's right.
When you say we, there's obviously yourself and your wife Vicky.
Yeah, so Vicky's
involved with the business.
Vicky's a big part of the business. So we sort of did this together when we were. We've been married 18, 19 years now. So yeah, so obviously he's had a career in.
Hang on, mate. Is it? You better get it right. Is it 18 or 19? Like,
I don't know.
Should be listening.
I'll cut this out.
2000. I think it's married in 2006. I think. So.
You got to get that sort of shit important, mate. Those important days, you got to get them right.
I know it was 2006. So I'm not sure if that's 18 or 19. My maths isn't that great. So So Vicky works in the business as well. She also has some consulting to. Who does she consult to? She consults to the City of Sydney Council. So, so she does a couple of days or a day and a half or something with the City of Sydney.
Yep.
And that's just to keep her. Sort of, she likes to do that consulting work, and she likes the relationship she's built whilst she's had her own career as well.
Yeah, of course.
So it didn't make sense for us both to have 100% into Pytha.
Yep.
But yeah, no, we wouldn't be where we are if it wasn't for her input into.
And you've got offices in all states.
We don't have offices.
We've got people on the ground.
We have our national sales managers in Queensland.
Yep.
What happened was we went from having, and this was when I first started in Pytha, we went from having sales reps in every state. And when I come on board, I didn't really like that business model. And what was happening was that the sales reps would sell. But then what they would do is they would then try and service their clients, which they probably should do. But because we had a national office at that time, we had all the technical resources in the office.
Yeah, the office.
So their job was to sell. Our job was to support the customers. But I think when sales are hard to come by, it's a fickle industry, it's very seasonal, obviously financial year, people are spending money. When they get really busy, they're not going to look at software, so really for us, it's really, there's no steady flow. You can't say, well, this month we're going to, sell this much and so on. So for them, they'd go out and earn revenue however they could, they had their own families to feed and stuff like that. I just didn't think it was a good model for the product. So what we did is we pretty much got rid of all of the national salespeople, and basically I would do all the technical side of things. Theo would sell, and I think we had another sales rep as well. But we could really manage without having individual people in every state.
Yeah.
And the business grew from there. I think the level of service become more consistent. We didn't have different sales reps who had different skill sets.
Yep.
Some people would walk in and say, oh, yeah, here's a book, read that and I'll come back tomorrow. Other people would sit there with them 2 days and show them.
Go through it.
So we just tried to create some standards. And similar thing now, you see a lot of companies that'll have just sales reps running around. I'm not sure in our industry, in the software side of things, if that's necessary.
The ideal model.
People just turn you away now because you're too busy anyway. So for us, it's about having, some quality salespeople that, are relationship people. They don't necessarily need to be in every state.
And I was just going to say, you probably don't need to be in the same room or the same state all the time with them. Obviously the technology, you can do it via Zoom or whatever. Remotely.
And that's the key too. And I think the one thing that has helped our business was COVID, because the expectation from clients prior to COVID was come and see me.
Yeah.
So we would literally jump on a plane. We would go to the customers. We might do that once or twice. So it was a very expensive part of our business. We were literally jumping on planes every week to visit people around the country. And rather than have that sales rep in Melbourne or in Adelaide or whatever, we would literally say, okay, no, we can service them from Sydney. We would jump on a plane, and to make a sale, even today, we still, if we're going to make a sale, we probably go and visit someone first, right? Because we want to build that relationship,
face to face,
that rapport. But it is accepting now because of COVID that we can literally just get on Zoom, meet their team, go through the product, go through what they need, and we can do business with people.
Yeah, I think Zoom. I think a lot of businesses found that out too. I mean, and a lot of, like you said, a lot of businesses are accepting that the communication, the technology now. Yeah, we can FaceTime or we can Zoom or whatever. Via email.
Yeah,
you don't necessarily have to have that rep come in face to face any longer.
That's right. And the key for us is, look, technology has been there for a while now, and for us, for servicing people, we've always been able to just take over their computer and service them. So we don't need to we're not running machinery, we don't have hardware, so we don't need to go and physically go and see customers to service them. We can do that remotely. But it's more the sales, it's more that relationship building.
Yes,
and obviously, the way we do that is we try and do a lot of industry stuff. So we support the associations like ACFA and IFA, and we meet people at those events, and obviously we have connections through machinery companies. We attend all their events, the ones they invite us to, and we just invest in that networking environment, and I think that works for us. It helps, yeah. So.
You've mentioned the product. For those that haven't paused this podcast and jumped onto the Pytha website to see what the actual product is, can you give us your elevator pitch as to what the product is?
Yeah. So Pytha is a 3D CAD program. It's not industry specific. The software was developed, I think, 45 years ago now in Germany. And it was developed for an architect. And the architect basically said, we want to go from 2D to 3D. So they started developing software for drawing 3D shapes. It evolved now to more specifically in the woodworking market. So there's tools built into Pytha that allow you to go basically draw it, create production drawings, create visual rendering and stuff like that. So if you want to visualize what you've drawn, you can create a nice photorealistic render out of Pytha. And then you can export those things to your CNC machine. So, Pytha's strength is the fact that it's a 3D CAD environment. It has always been 3D CAD. It's never started as a 2D environment. It was always a 3D environment. And if you're drawing in Pytha, you can see, before you produce anything, you can see that it's going to work. You can actually see it in 3D. You know that the parts are the right sizes. You know that the way you've constructed it's going to work. So it's a good tool to be able to firstly design it. Then it's a good tool then to be able to say, okay, we've designed this. We'll produce all the documentation for building approvals and stuff like that. And then we'll actually provide the drawings for the guys on the factory floor to be able to then know how to interpret that drawing. So traditionally, when I started setting out, you do what we call a length rod. You get a bit of 2B1, you draw some measurements, you'd write a cutting list, and then you give it to the guy on the factory floor, and either you're having a big discussion about how you want to build that thing, or he's interpreting and he's trying to work out. We had a lot of guys in the early days, if you had to make a curve counter, you'd say, here's the drawings, go for your life. And you had experienced tradesmen
to do it
that would spend 3 or 4 or 5 days making this curve counter, and you relied on that experience. The issue at the moment with the industry is you don't have that experience, right? So
lost it, haven't we?
Bringing it into the office has enabled people to be able to then have the experienced people in the office and then less qualified people on the factory floor. So Pytha enables you to go through that process. And as I said, it's not industry specific. So it's always been successful for us. We've always targeted that shop fitters, those commercial joiners, guys that are making stuff that it's different all the time. Because Pytha is easy to use and it's pretty fast in the way it produces that furniture. I'd say it's probably one of the best ones on the market for speed in developing custom joinery. And that's where our strengths are. We are now developing in our software to handle more of the standard cabinetry types stuff, like cabinet making, so kitchens and stuff like that. So that, because it's just a volume game at the end of the day. If you look at the number of joinery companies in Australia, probably 10% of them are shop fitters. The other 90% are doing kitchens and stuff like that. So for us, to get into that market, we need to develop our software to be more specific for that market. It's not we can't do it. We can do that stuff already. It's more the interface. It's more the customer's experience. Because, they don't want to learn the CAD software. They just want to be able to input some data and the system does it automatically for them. So,
punches it out at the end. It must be interesting, and your customers must love it, because it'd be a cost saving that they don't have to spend 4 or 5 days building that curved
developing
counter, but also to the old measure twice, cut once. It's already on the computer, so it shouldn't have any dramas once you put it down to the CNC machine, that it cuts it as it should be.
It's an interesting thing, and I think over the years, people traditionally have bought CNC machines. So you might spend $150,000, $250,000, $350,000 on a CNC machine, and then you buy software. Now, obviously, with the introduction in the last probably 10 years from all these subscription-based type things, you'll see people looking at, well, what can I get that's cheap? Yeah. And it's even in the machinery game now, right? The guys, spend 10, 15 years ago, you'd spend $350,000 a machine. That machine now is probably $150,000, right? So, you look at inflation and how, the cost of living and everything's gone up. Well, software and machinery have actually gone down. In the 80s and 90s, you were paying millions of dollars to equip your factory. Now you're paying a few $100,000. In that, people don't value their time. So they're looking for, what is the cheapest solution I can get? And if I can get something that's cheap, then maybe this will save me some money.
Yeah.
But then they might take 4 days to draw something, where if they bought Pytha, then
that'll be the cost saving.
Might cost a little bit more to buy the software, but then
I'm only going to take 1 day instead of 4 days.
Exactly right. So I think, people value, and there's a skill shortage as well in this industry at the moment. We're really seeing a big downturn in the number of tradesmen, in the number of skill set, and, the earning capacity as well. What people can earn being on site, being an installer, compared to being in the factory. Compared to being in the office, right? So, I think progression 20 years ago was you do your apprenticeship, you work on the bench, you maybe go and do installing, you might become
climb the ladder,
an estimator, you might become a set out guy, become a project manager, right? So, that we see the young kids now want to be the apprentice, then the project manager. So there's that.
They want to be the boss now, Michael. They want to come straight in. I don't want to be the apprentice. I want to be the boss.
Yeah, and look, that's fine, but I think at the end of the day, we need that skill set, and and regardless of whether you're the boss or whether you're the apprentice, at some point your business will need someone to do the drawings.
Yep.
So it's just a matter of, and obviously the industry is going through a change with, AI and stuff like that. So I think for Pytha itself, it's just a matter of, the product can do everything that the customer needs to do. The good thing about Pytha is that you're not sort of stuck with a certain industry or a certain thing. You can draw, kitchens, you can draw, shops, you can draw.
Yeah, that's right.
Products if you want. You don't really need to just focus on one thing. And I think that's probably important as well when you're considering looking at software.
No doubt.
This might be an open-ended question, and it probably goes on the back of that, but what are some of the changes you've seen in the industry in your time? I know technology and software, sometimes you buy software and bring it home and got to download and upgrade straight away. So what are some of the changes you've seen?
Yeah, that is one of the big things is technology, right? Or as I said, when I first started, we'd hit a button and we'd wait for 20 minutes for it to do something, If it's not instant now, people think there's something wrong with the software, right? So
they want performance now, mate, don't they?
Yeah, and that's one of our biggest challenges as well. Even just keep developing the software is that the software, the technology in the computers change so much that the technology in the software coding has to change to be able to keep up to date with that. So you've got to really keep, always keep developing to be able to keep up with the technology. AI will change things. How it looks in the software game, I'm not sure yet. I don't think anyone's quite sure. I think at the end user's expecting to say, draw me a kitchen that's this size and it will do it. I think that's the end. Everyone thinking that AI
that's going to be the easy click the fingers and away it does.
I'm not sure it'll ever get to that.
No.
Maybe it will. But, at the end of the day, the developers will keep looking at how can we integrate AI and make the software easier to use, faster to use, better to use. But I think the biggest changes really is in the actual industry itself. When I started, especially at Classic Resources, there were like 400 guys.
Yeah.
We were running, we were 4 guys in the office running 60 guys on the factory floor. So when we shifted from having just, guys, experienced tradesmen who were just doing their own thing and just giving them a cutting list and making sure things were cut on the panel saw and stuff like and the beam saw and stuff like that, when we brought it into the office, it increased the time it took in the office, decreased the number of people you needed on the factory floor.
Yeah.
And it's that transition has changed the industry over the last 30 years. And you're seeing customers and companies now that because of all the machinery and all the automation, they don't need as many staff.
Yeah, and even also, mate, you look at imported product now.
Yeah.
You look at joinery shops, and you and I are similar age, and you talk about companies like McPherson and Davies and Classic Resources, and they've all come and gone.
Yep.
Plus many, many more.
Yep.
The joinery shops in our industry, mate, have really, really thinned out completely.
Yeah, and they continue to thin out, right? And the big guys now are struggling because, especially in shop fitting, it's not a 12-month-a-year business, right? And I remember this from my apprenticeship. Come Easter time, it was like, what are we going to do? But come Christmas time, it's like, how are we going to do all this work?
That's right. I haven't got enough hours in the day
because everyone wants a new shop.
Yep.
Before the Christmas period,
get the
right?
Christmas trade.
So it's just finding that balance as well. I think with the amount of people that we have in the marketplace now, the amount of people that are in the joinery game, I think because of the skill shortage, you'll see that there'll be a lot more smaller companies.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll see the real big companies now. I think you'll see just those smaller type businesses.
Well, just of recent, mate, like you talk of kitchens there recently and some of the big crowds there that have just fallen over of recent, like some of the names there, but it's huge staff numbers and so forth, and then it's just turned to shit.
Yeah, because I don't think the volume, we're not Europe, we don't have the volume that Europe has, right? We don't have the, if you're in Germany, you don't have the borders of France and all those. So you can't easily just transition joinery across, even the States.
Across the ocean, that's right.
So I think, we've seen people in the 90s and early trying to build big European type businesses, and they just don't work in this environment. So I think what you'll find, as I said, it's cheaper for the guys now to get into manufacturing as far as probably not rent-wise and stuff like that, but definitely...
There's not a lot of machinery they need to be...
and stuff like that.
Few items and you're up and running.
Yeah. You may see the industry go towards like the building industry went, like the housing industry went a lot of years ago. 30 years ago, a carpenter would stand the frame, do all the fit out, the eaves, the roof, everything. Now you get 3 different trades coming in to do a house, and I think similar. We're seeing that now. We've seen that transition especially in the shop fitting game, where you've got now project managers that don't make anything; they just run the jobs.
Yeah,
you got joinery companies that just make
joinery. Don't even install it.
Don't have a customer.
No, don't even install it.
The customer is, So I think you'll find that continue to be a trend.
Niche markets.
Yeah, and I think, if you want to manufacture, like you're seeing it now with cut the size, right? All the DIY type guys now, have really the Bunnings and the the IKEAs and stuff.
I was just going to say the IKEAs, the flat packs.
They've forced the joiners into sort of, well, okay, we won't even make it for you. We'll just send you the cabinets, right? So I think, what we do need to do is we need to get more apprentices into the industry, and we need to start building up the skill set again of what those apprentices can do. And I think for the industry. Otherwise, what we find is the foreign invasion come. And when I say foreign invasion, I don't mean making stuff in China. I mean that you'll find that
they're coming here to make it.
They're coming here to make it, yeah. So you're finding now that a lot of the people that we don't have the skill set, we're having to import that skill set.
Yeah. You're finding though, and I attended an apprentice, a school thing through IFA, where I think there was 4,000 kids came through an event which we sat on with IFA to try and bring apprentices in, and we got names and so forth. We might have got 30 names over 2 days, but out of that, we probably only got one that was really interested. You know, I mean, in our industry, the kids these days out there, mate, with apprenticeships, they're just not. They're a different breed. They don't want to get their hands dirty. Like we spoke earlier about, they want to come straight in and be do the top job. They don't want to climb the ladder. They don't want to wait. They're very ambitious, which is a good thing. But they want to start off on the top money and the top car and so forth. They don't want to start from the bottom. And I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's apprentices. They're very, very hard, or even workers, very, very hard to find.
Yeah, look, I think, and the good thing was at the IFA conference, they had some people speaking about generation differences and stuff. And it's definitely a generation thing. And I think, obviously the parents have a lot to do with influencing their kids and what careers they want to do. I think, 30 years ago, trade was seen as a...
Agree. Apprentices, the parents 30 years ago, maybe 40 years ago, really pushed kids to, you need to get a trade, whether it was a sparky or a plumber or a chippy or anything, shop fitter.
Yeah.
And where these days their parents are telling their kids, you've got to be I want you to be a doctor, or you be the top of whatever field that they want to try and push them into.
That may come with money too, because like the apprentice might be on $16 or $17 an hour, but then on a technology side of things, where they could be writing programs. Or even be a YouTuber or an influencer, they're earning $120,000 a year and they're 17.
Yeah, it is. We've got it completely ballsed up.
Yeah, look, and there's when I was an apprentice, there was no such thing as a YouTuber, right? So, and probably a good
or
thing,
an influencer,
probably a good thing that wasn't cameras around back in the day, because Anyway, but look, there's different opportunities available to kids these days, So I think the key is, look, if you do a trade, you go around to Cronulla and you look at all the waterfronts.
Yeah, they're all tradies.
They're not owned by doctors and they're not owned by lawyers. They're owned by plumbers and electricians, and so the trades are doing okay, right? And the trades are only going to continue to do well because of the shortage. If there's not as many of them doing it, then the work's always going to be there, right?
Yeah, the demand.
At the end of the day, people need a kitchen. People need, a shop. It's always going to be there. So
there's also the house shortage as well. So there's always the need, and the government's come out that we need X amount of houses in the next 3 months or something like that. So there's always going to be that demand for those guys as well.
Well, the issue is there's not, even the carpentry industry, there's not enough. Like if they do expand that demand, there's not the tradies there to be able to do it, right? So they're going to face the same sort of challenges that we face. But I think, as I said, it's just about educating the kids that this career path is a good career path. I think, examples like myself where you're not stuck on a bench till you're 55 making furniture. There's other opportunities in this industry, right? So, whether it be you want to, you have a passion to make stuff, or you have a passion to get in the office and do some set out work, or become a project manager, or run your own business, there's all those opportunities in this industry. And there's a lot of guys like myself that have gone through the apprenticeships and done trades and are doing other things.
Both sides of the fence.
Yeah, and it's a skill that you'll have for life. At the end of the day,
that's right.
It's something I can rely on if I need to make something. I've got those skills, and it's something that you enjoy. So if you enjoy doing stuff like that, like making stuff, then it's probably a good thing for someone to consider as a young kid. So
that's right.
Yeah, for sure. As a business owner, what are some of the biggest challenges you face?
For us as a business, we obviously staffing is important for us. Our next staff member comes from one of our customers, and that's not always an easy thing to do. You know,
True.
we're obviously trying to look after our customer base. We don't like to recruit people that are already in a job, but, you know, we're looking for experience sometimes in having expertise in our software, having already that experience. So that's a challenge for us as a business. I think as a challenge for us as a business as well is just the sheer number of people that can use our software. Because when we're trying to sell to customers, they're looking for that experienced operator.
Yep.
People have gone away.
That's in any industry, mate. They want to talk to someone that knows what they're doing.
But I think, you know, training becomes important. I think, you know, our software isn't hard to use, right? It's just a matter of finding someone that wants to do it and then training them to be able to do it. So, you know, I think last year we ran a thing where we said anyone that wants to learn Python, we'll give them free access to it for a month and we'll let them do our training course. That was pretty successful, but I think we just need to continue to grow the number of people that can use our software. And whether that becomes through selling the software to customers or just training existing people through their businesses. But, you know, the challenge for us is getting people to use it. The challenge for the customer then is not losing those people that can use it, right?
Yeah.
And that's you know, it's like when we try and get people to come to the IFA events, right? Bring your staff, and they're worried that someone's going to poach that staff, right? So it's, you know, I think, definitely the labour is a big factor in our risk. Obviously, other products, there's a lot of products on the market now. There's a lot of choice, but we position ourselves where we're at least got people to support and service that, and I think that becomes important.
We're not just going to sell you something and then walk away and
that's right.
You work it out.
On the back of that, I've got two questions. It's interesting, and you said about your training. It must be difficult sometimes going into a business that an owner says, all right, we want to use Pytha, and the actual person doing the drawing might be, and I don't want to sound ageist, but might be a bit older and not au fait with technology, and there's a little bit of pushback there from the actual user. Or then you've also got the young person.
Why are you looking at me for that?
Because I know what you like when you're technology.
What are you suggesting?
Yeah, you'd be one of them that would push back. Or you do the noodles and say, this should just take 2 minutes. And why can't I get it now?
I want it now.
Or there's the young person that's keen to learn it, and then there's a little bit of friction internally as well.
Yeah, it's a good thing for us because our experience in this is that the guys that are older, you know, although they might be, I'm not into technology and stuff like that, they have experience. And using a product like Pytha, it's not about what you can do in software or computers. It's about how do you know how to make a joinery item. So we can teach the software quite easily to anyone. You know, I went to America when I first started working for Pytha, and our customer was 66 years old, and he's, you know, didn't know how to turn the computer on, but he had 46 years of experience in making joinery. And when he taught him, learned how to draw in 3D and go, he's a superstar. Now, if I bring a kid who's 16 years old into the office because they're young and they know technology, they don't know how to make anything. They haven't got
how to make the joinery. You've got to train them up on that side of things.
And I can't teach someone how to become a shop fitter or a joiner or a cabinet maker. That's what an apprenticeship does. That's what experience does, right? But I can teach them in 5 minutes how to draw a block in Pytha and how to use that particular tool, right? So for us, we always have this problem. They bring the young kid in off the bench. They're a second-year apprentice. They said he's going to be our drafter. I said, well, we're going to draw this reception counter. Does he know how to make that?
No,
maybe not. So it's important for those guys in their 40s, you know, and this is what we're trying to say in the industry. If you're in your 40s and you've been on the bench for 20-something years, come into the office. You don't lose. Like the one thing that I loved about Pytha, I loved making stuff. So as I said, when I went to Keith's, I didn't want to go into the office. But when I used Pytha, I felt like I'd made that joinery item.
Yeah.
I was responsible for actually assembling it on the screen in 3D.
Yeah.
So the only thing I didn't do was I didn't pick up a bit of board and put a nail in it, right? But I'd made that job. And before it went to the factory floor or on site,
it was your idea.
I'd already made that job.
And you knew it was going to work as well, even before it got cut as such.
So those guys who enjoy making stuff should come into the office, and they should take up those opportunities, and they should learn software like Pytha and start to give back and start to, and it's better for their bodies, right? They don't have to sit on stand up on the cold concrete floor for 8 hours a day and throw cupboards around and
wearing
stuff
steel
like that.
caps and all that type of thing.
So they're the people we encourage to do it, but generally, either they're the people that are going into project management or other jobs. So it's just a matter of just finding those people. So
the other part I had, and you mentioned it earlier, was around the cheapness and the subscription model that someone, I can get this online and I only pay $45 a month, but it takes them 4 days when then you're coming in going, hey, we can do this, this and this. Yeah, we're a little bit more expensive.
And then there's also with an issue with the program behind the scenes. Who do I contact?
Yeah, or it's all an online.
It's all online
systems.
Yeah, look, we offer all solutions. At the end of the day, we've got to be flexible and businesses have different cash flow needs. So we do offer a payment plan, purchase outright, and a subscription model, right? But the issue for us isn't the costs. The issue is the valuing of time and the valuing of their time. So, just because something's cheap doesn't make it good. And just because something, because you can afford that particular subscription doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting the most out of that software or you're actually getting out of the most out of your time. And we see that a lot. We see someone really struggle to do things that the software is not designed to do, but they persist with it because they're paying $250 a month for it. Where we know that with our software, they might pay a little bit more than that per month for it, or they might buy it. But then we know that
the right thing
that process would be a lot easier and a lot quicker.
Yeah, for sure.
So just getting the market to sort of, okay, well, if you're going to sit down, what are you paying yourself an hour, or what are you worth an hour, right? If it's $80 an hour and it takes you 3 hours to do something, then it's cost you, $240 to draw that particular job, right? Now, if something else could be done in an hour, then you've just saved yourself. And that's in 1 day, right? So only
one item.
An hour a day of saving is $80 a day. It's
$400
a week. It's nearly $2,000 a month, right?
Yeah.
And people don't. They're blinded by the fact, but your product
is more expensive.
And so they're the challenges that we face as a business to try and overcome those thought processes. But, there's obviously a lot of things in place that we're putting in place to sort of, make sure. And, things like, we're starting to, even in our business now, started utilizing the AI as far as, creating training content and stuff like that. So that's important to us. Where our customer base, we make sure that we're trying to overservice them. We're trying to give them, more than just, a phone call if they need it. It's, so we run some free training during the week through our lunch and learn systems. We're providing more knowledge base so they can help themselves if it's after hours and they need help. And so we try and give more value back to our customers through that sort of process. So.
Yeah, that's tremendous.
Lunch and learn. I've got to get to some of those.
How do you advertise to your clients?
So as I said, we use a lot of industry type events. So we the major sponsors of IFA, or a major sponsor, I should say, not the major sponsor.
A national sponsor?
National sponsor, yeah. Same with the ACFA. The ACFA, we're the training partner for that organisation.
What's the ACFA stand for, mate? Tell us. Something cabinet.
Australian Cabinet Making
Federation, Corporation.
Australian Cabinet and Furniture Association.
Oh, there you go.
Australian Cabinet Making Association.
ACFA.
ACFA. Okay.
Yeah. So
and they have events on like IFA do?
Yes. So they're an RTO. So they're basically a training organisation. They actually train apprentices. So if an apprentice in the cabinet making can go to TAFE, or they can actually engage the ACFA to become their teachers. What that means, and they do a lot of that in remote areas, right, where there's no TAFEs. You know? So if you're in Wagga and you can't get to a TAFE, it's 3 hours away. So what they do is they put the kids through the program, the apprenticeship program. They'll send assessors out, and they'll basically sign them off on their apprenticeship and give them the qualification. So that's an important organisation, and obviously same as IFA. IFA is for the shop fitters, our most important organisation, because most of our customers are shop fitters.
Members of IFA, yep.
So that helps us promote our businesses through those associations. We obviously advertise. We have our own marketing type events through our CRM software. So we send out marketing campaigns. We try and, as many as machinery companies that will allow us, we try and affiliate with those guys because they're on the ground selling machines to people that need machinery, and to drive that machinery they need software. So they become an important integral part of our business at that relationship. So as I said, the people that are willing for us to be a part of that, we don't affiliate with any particular brands. We try and give everyone a fair chance. But we're trying to make their machine perform at its best by driving it with our software. So that's an important relationship. We're working hard to build those relationships, and that helps us sell the product as well.
Cool.
And then we just run our own events. We've run, since I've taken over, we've had a 20 and a 25-year event. So Pytha has been in Australia for 27 years now.
When you say an event, a dinner?
We've hosted a big national conference, for ourselves. So we had a 3-day event where we invited all the customers and industry people to come. They learnt something about the software. We did some workshops around. We invited some speakers and stuff like that.
Had a big dinner down at the Rocks.
Had a big dinner.
Fantastic
down at the Rocks.
night, which I was able to attend, and it was a very, very good venue. And it was an extremely good night. Pytha did a tremendous job putting that together.
Yeah.
Had a good night.
So we just try and do things like that. We're not out door knocking. We try, sometimes we might do a little bit of cold calling if we're in an area somewhere, but we tend to leave businesses around. If they're interested in our software, we try and let them come to us rather than us really try and hard sell to them. But, it's just a word of mouth.
I was just going to say probably a word of mouth in your industry too, Michael, with once one company's got it on and not joining companies and that are talking to each other and say, hey, what are you using?
Yeah, and that's hopefully that's happening. We like that. We like that. We like to see our customers promoting us and promoting our software.
It's the best way to do it.
Yep. You do see a lot of movement in industry where, a certain person might be able to use the software and they move into a business.
I suggest we use this program.
Yeah. And look, we don't encourage that a lot. It happens, and obviously we've made sales from that. But I still like to think of with a business owner, if the software that they have works for them, then train someone to use that software. Spending $40,000, $50,000 on a software package just because someone can use it, a new employee to your business, and then that employee decides this business isn't for me in 6 weeks' time and they leave, then that becomes a big risk, you know. So I think encouraging people, training, education is the key, right? Getting the right people that know your business and then teach them how to use the software is always better than bringing someone new into your business that doesn't know your business but knows a product, and especially in shop fitting, if you're making let's say a David Jones store, right, and you've got 20 years experience in doing that, bringing someone that's never made a David Jones store in their life in to draw those David Jones stores doesn't make sense to me.
Exactly.
When you've got guys on the factory floor that have been doing it for 20 years, bring them into the office, might take them a month to be proficient in the software, but that month that you teach them,
they've got the experience.
They're already in your business for 20 years.
And they know what to do. They know the other side of the product.
So that's just something that the business owners themselves need to start to, and we need to encourage that through our training programs and our support systems. But I think as an industry, it's hard. It's hard sometimes when you have high demand. You need to get something done quickly. But I think a lot of people now in the industry are realising that, there's a lot of contract drawers out there at the moment. A lot of guys that can actually use software, depending on what software it is. I know there's a lot of guys out there contracting themselves out as Pytha users. That's a good help. It's a good stepping platform to be able to get stuff to the machine whilst you're training someone else up. So utilising resources like that allow you then to keep the experience in your business and still get work done.
Yeah, don't have an impact on the work time frame.
Yep.
Good. Away from work, how do you relax?
I play lawn bowls, so I like my sport. So I was a tennis player when I was a kid, and then actually,
was that at Lanier Tennis Court?
I was at Lanier Tennis Court.
There you go.
Yeah, so I played there with Rob Bentley. He was my coach for a number of years. Actually played soccer for a number of years with the Liverpool City Robins.
They were out at Petulio Park.
Yeah. So I was a Robin till I was about 14, then started playing tennis, and then got into golf when I was about 17, and then played golf till I was about 27, and then I had some friends that played softball, so I played softball, and then I still play a little bit of softball, but yeah, I got into bad knees, bad back, bad everything. So lawn bowls was a sport that I got into when my daughter was 1.
It's not as hard on the body, mate, eh?
Not as hard on the body. And I actually enjoy it because it's, it's very it can be as competitive as you like. You can go out there and compete with the best, or you can just have a bit of...
Do you like it because you can have a schooner at each end?
I'm not a big drinker.
No, fair enough.
Yeah, so I'm not the guy that goes and gets drunk drinking bowls. I don't drink during the game. I'll have a couple after the game with the just to be social and stuff. But I'm not a big drinker. Like so that's not the reason why sort of I play bowls.
It's not like the what's the movie Mick Malloy?
Yeah,
Crackerjack.
Crackerjack.
No, but I do enjoy it because I enjoy I'm a competitive person, regardless whether it be work, play, whatever. So I enjoy that side of it. And I'm starting to get back a little bit into my golf.
Yes, you do enjoy a game of golf.
So yeah, so that's
we have played a few games of golf around Australia.
Yes. So,
what are you playing off now, mate? Currently,
I think my handicap would be about 9. I think between 9 and 12. I don't have an official handicap.
It still goes all right. So you used to be a member at where, mate?
Anthill Park Golf Course. So I started.
Where's that one?
So that was at Picton. So
okay.
So I started driving down from Liverpool down to Mittagong Highlands Golf Course.
Great spot.
So me and my dad used to do that when I was still living at Liverpool, and then when we moved to Campbelltown, we lived at Glen Alpine right on Campbelltown Golf Course.
Yes.
So I became a member there, and that's when I started playing a lot of golf because we lived on the golf course.
Yeah. Is that the one behind MacArthur Square?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a nice course there.
It is a nice course. So we played there, and then I actually got poached by Picton. They wanted me to come and play Pennants, their number 1 Pennants for them. They were sort of recruiting a few good golfers. They had one of the best golfers going around at the time, Noel Woods.
Where's the course at Picton? I don't think
Anthill Park. It's basically as you come off. Well, you go over the Razorback Mountain, and then it's pretty much as you go over the top of Razorback Mountain
before you get into the town.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a good little course. It's
probably driven past it, never seen it.
Yeah, you probably have driven past it, and so yeah, so more lawn bowls is what I.
And you're playing at what club you're playing for currently for lawn bowls?
So I joined St John's Park 18 months ago. So
yes,
they're probably one of the biggest.
One of the biggest. Yeah.
Shout out to the Dave Marsh.
Who's the CEO?
CEO of there.
Yeah, Marshy out there. So
champion bloke.
Yeah.
It's
good
interesting
footballer too, mate. He was.
It's interesting with lawn bowls, and me growing up, it was always an old man sport that you'd drive past and there was 100 blokes that were 100 there bowling. But nowadays, it's young people are coming along bowling, and you even see it at the Commonwealth Games and that type of thing, like young people, early 20s, 18, 19-year-olds bowling.
Well, they've added a bit of colour to it too. Once upon a time it was all whites, but now it's like the day-night cricket. They've each club's got their own different colours and so forth of their outfits.
Yeah.
Add a bit of a razzmatazz, and it is good to see the young people out there bowling.
I think it's a good sport because they were doing a little bit of promotion at the Australian Open. I was just up the Australian Open a couple of weeks ago.
Where was that at, mate?
That was on the Gold Coast, so Broadbeach.
Tough gig, eh?
It was good. The weather was perfect. It was actually good. So, But I think one of the guys said, look, people are trying to now promote it as a young person sport, and it's not really. It's just an all-inclusive sport.
Yeah,
I think that's probably the best thing to represent it.
I think that's exactly, because touch football, the sport that I'm involved with, the same thing. I mean, you can play from a young kid right through to 60s, you know what I mean? So it's inclusive, whether it's male or female.
Yeah.
Lawn bowls is exactly the same.
And the good thing, the sport's transitioning now, so it's open gender. So basically the men and women can play together.
You can pick it up at any time and at any age.
Which is getting a lot more of the younger women into the game, because, traditionally they had to play midweek and they had to take time off work or school or whatever. So
it's interesting, and I've seen it. It's on Fox. It's like the big Super National title.
Yep.
And they had the music blaring and the crowd's going bananas.
It's a party theme.
It's really good setup.
Yeah, so our club has just put a team into that now. So we have the St John's. What are we called? Not quite sure what we're called. Actually.
St John's Park Pirates.
No, we're not the Pirates. We're the Saints.
The Saints, of course.
Yeah, of course we're the Saints. Yeah. So St John Park Saints.
You wear the white with the red V.
We have got actually, no, it's not a red V. So
I'll have to have a talk to Marshy about this. This will have to change.
Yeah, so they're now entering into and we're about to renovate the club, put 2 big undercover greens in there. So
they're always doing something there, mate. St John's Park bowls
all year round. So
yeah, no, that's good.
That's good. Well done.
Now, to finish the podcast, we ask our fast 5 questions just to get to know you a little bit better. So they're rapid fire. What would be your last meal?
Probably lobster. I'm allergic to lobster. I can't eat it. So if it's my
so you can make the most of it.
If it's my last meal, I might as well eat
it. So you must like it, but you can't eat it because you're allergic to it.
I don't know if I like it. I had it when I was about 15 and they called the ambulance to revive me.
Wow.
I had it then again when I was in my early 20s.
Shellfish.
It was in a lobster soup and I didn't know it was a lobster soup.
Oh.
And the ambulance had to come and take me down the tower. So I'm not sure if I enjoy it, but if it's my last meal, I might as well
make the most of it. I like that. I like that. Your drink of choice?
If I'm drinking beer, I'm drinking Great Northern at the moment.
Nice.
Super crisp.
Yes. Nice drop.
But I probably...
A couple in that fridge over there behind you, mate, if you have a look.
I like a nice whiskey, so...
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So
What's your go-to there?
Don't really... I used to, when I was young, I used to drink Chivas Regal, but which was more of a Scotch than it was a whiskey. But I'm not quite sure actually what I would. I normally drink wild turkey. So
honey?
Rare breed. No, the rare breed.
I like the honey one.
Yeah. So
that's very nice.
So that's probably
smooth. Just on the rocks.
On the rocks. Yeah. You're gonna drink rare breed. You
drink
on the rocks.
Yeah. Exactly. Nice.
What is your favourite movie?
Probably Happy Gilmore, I'd say, or Step Brothers. They're the two.
A little bit of comedy there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very good.
Anything with Adam Sandler.
Adam Sandler, yeah.
He has made some good ones. He's made some flops.
Yeah,
he's made some absolute flogs, hasn't he?
But,
wow.
But he's made some good ones there too. So, who is the most famous person you have in your phone?
Well, I was going to say Clayton, but
who?
How would I be famous?
Probably Steve Glasson. So
yes,
he was
lawn bowl
champion.
Is that him ringing now?
Maybe. So.
He's the gentleman that come to an event for IFA.
No,
No, that's Cameron.
that was Cameron Curtis.
Okay, because he was a champion too, wasn't he?
Cameron Curtis, yeah. So probably both of those guys would be up there, right? So so Cameron played for Australia, won I think gold medal in Commonwealth Games in the early 90s. Was just a superstar junior. He was really the big pathway for all these young kids coming through.
Yeah.
And then he became the Australian coach. And then I played with Cameron at Grandviews maybe eight or 9 years ago. Steve I played with at Mount Lewis when I was playing at Mount Lewis. Steve, won
he's one of the big names, Steve Glasson.
Nine Australian indoor titles and just was one of the legends of the sport. So, yeah, so he's probably...
Is he still playing?
He's not playing. Sorry, he plays. Yes, he still plays out at Mount Lewis.
Okay.
He's not part of the... I think he's on the board of directors or he's the chairman of selectors of the Australian Bowling Club. Of the Australian team. But, he's not... Yeah, not to the level...
What level... what's your goal, mate? Lawn bowls. What level do you want to get to?
I'd like to represent New South Wales in over 40s.
Yeah?
I think I've got 10 years to go.
Before he's 40. 10 years before he's 40.
Bullshit.
10 years before I'm 60.
I was going to say.
But yeah, I think that's an ambition of mine is to maybe play over 40s for New South Wales.
Is that the oldest age they've got, or you just want to target that 40s?
Well, they have an open side.
Yes, of course.
Obviously, it's very difficult to get into that side.
Yeah.
And, I think we say bowls is obviously all inclusive. I think when you're looking at the high performance structure in bowls now, they're really targeting the juniors coming through the system. So I think, when you look at how the game's structured at the moment is you represent through your juniors, through under 25s, into the open side, then you're sort of moving on to the seniors, more senior type things. So the transition now is if you're not under 25 and playing for New South Wales, then the likelihood of you playing for New South Wales is probably, unless you're out there winning everything, right?
What about my man, Jack Lewis? How's he going?
He goes good. So, yeah, he's a good bowler. He's in that young brigade, right?
Yeah, of course.
So they get those good opportunities through those systems because of their age. So I started later in life, and that's okay. If I was out there winning everything, I'd be included.
Sure.
So it's not like I'm not overlooked because I'm not performing. It's probably more so if I was performing better, I'd be in the side. If I was younger, you might get a look in, right? But so that's an ambition for mine. I'm 50 now, and I've got 10 years before I turn 60.
So New South Wales 40s.
Over 40s for New South Wales,
is that year? Do they compete yearly or every second year?
Annually, yeah.
Annually, yeah. Okay.
So that's my ambition. So we'll see how we go.
When we're away at the conference, you were showing me these Technicoloured lawn bowls.
Yes.
Have you taken delivery of them yet?
Yes, I have.
And they go all right?
So I've got the Pytha lawn bowls.
They've got Pytha brand.
Sponsored.
Sponsored
by Pytha lawn bowls.
You're showing me. Very proud of him, he was.
Yeah. So might tour the country and play lawn bowls and sell software.
There you go.
By semi-retirement.
When you make the New South Wales side and win the state championship, you'll be able to sign those and put them up in your boardroom as a memorabilia piece.
That sounds good.
Mate, and finally, if heaven does exist, what would God say when you arrive at the KRGS Pearly roller shutter? He's done a bit of renovations up there. He's got rid of the gates and put a roller shutter in. It's pearl in colour. But what would he say when you arrive there?
He'd probably say you're late.
You're late.
You're late.
Expected to see you earlier.
I thought he was going to say, why don't you design this up for me?
Yeah, can you redraw these?
Yeah.
No, he'd probably just say, expected to see you a little bit earlier.
What do you think of the decor? Do you reckon we can update it?
Yeah.
Huh? Can you strip this back and polish it up for me?
Yeah, that's it. French polish these.
Michael Rowe, thank you for coming on and having a chat with us, mate. It's been great to tell us the behind-the-scenes things in your life in regarding Pytha and lawn bowls and all of the above. But it's been great, mate, for you to come in and have a chat and tell us what you're about.
Thanks for having me.
It's been easy.
It has been fun. I'll put all your details in the show notes with Pytha Partners if anyone wants to reach out and have a look at their product and go from there. Michael's your man.
Or if anyone wants to purchase a set of Pytha lawn bowls.
Lawn bowls, yes.
He's your man.
There you go. Perfect. Mate, thank you again. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for your time.
Cheers,
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
That brings the door down on the 55th episode in our chat with Michael Rowe from Pytha Partners. What a great story of how he first discovered Pytha as a shop-fitting apprentice and soon learned to love the capabilities of this program. For more information on Pytha Partners, you can visit their website, www.pythapartners.com.au. If you have missed any previous episodes of the KRGS Doors Podcast, you can download them from our website, www.krgsdoors.com.au/podcast, or on your favourite podcast player, search KRGS Doors. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to ensure you don't miss any future episodes. This also boosts our ranking and my ego. The other thing I suggest, if you've enjoyed the podcast, visit your favourite podcast player and leave a review or a rating. Keep your ears peeled for our upcoming next episode where we speak to Tamara Simon, speaker, author and coach. For over 25 years, she's been helping owners repair, renovate and rebuild their often expensive hobbies and dysfunctional workplaces into simple, profitable small businesses they can actually love. It is certainly not a chat to miss. Keep your ears peeled for this one. I've been your host, Drew Blackman, and you've been fantastic for tuning in today. As always, you could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with us. Thanks. Till next time. The KRGS Doors Show, proudly brought to you by KRGS Doors. For all your shopfront roller shutters, roller grills, folding closures and bifold doors, visit www.krgsdoors.com.au.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.